Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 46th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We greatly appreciate you guys being here. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. And spring ball has officially kicked off. We're almost a week into spring football. So let's talk about the roster, the overview of the roster. What are your thoughts or some things that surprised you when the roster came out, Gerald?
Yeah, I think the big thing that jumped out to me looking at the roster, a lot of defenders are playing lighter this year. I think the couple that jumped out off the page for me, Colton Vasic's down like 21 pounds, which is a little bit interesting. I wonder if they're trying to get him to play a little lighter, a little faster. Same thing for Jalen Gilbo and Manny Muhammad. Both are down like 8 and 12 pounds respectively. And I wonder, last year, Manny Muhammad took a little bit of a step back from what he did his freshman year. And so I wonder if they're trying to get him to play a little bit lighter, a little bit faster. Same thing for Gilbo, probably playing more at corner than he is at that nickel spot. So probably needs that increase, that half a step, that extra step that comes with being almost 10 pounds lighter. Leifau also down 7 pounds. So there are guys that are playing lighter and faster on defense. The other thing that jumped out to me, Trey Moore listed at linebacker and not edge, was an interesting question. I wonder if that's just a semantic thing in the defensive scheme or what it is. If he is playing linebacker, that is a very interesting development. And we'll talk about, some other things that are happening later in the show that maybe give us some credence to where that's going. But, that to me, those are the things that really jumped out to me is that, like, it seems like the defense is playing lighter, and I wonder if it's trying to get faster, a little bit extra step, especially in the secondary.
No, I think that's a really good point. I definitely agree with you about Manny Muhammad and Jalen Gilbo. Like, I think it's for them just to play a little bit faster. I think Malik Muhammad kind of struggled with that with those certain wide receivers, not big guys that gave him trouble, but more speedsters kind of gave him trouble. So it's like, hey, why don't you drop a few pounds, get a little bit lighter, get faster? And then Gilbo was already kind of big for an outside cornerback. Like, for someone in that type of system that they want to run a lot of man with, I think he had to drop weight. The Vasic's one is interesting. I don't know if I know he's dealing with an injury. If that has more to do with it, then they want him to be that weight. So it's going to be very interesting to me how that's going to work out if he is going to stay that weight. And then the Trey Moore thing, I think we're going to see a hybrid situation with him. I think you're going to see him play inside. I think you're going to see him play outside, kind of to get his draft stock up to where he probably wants it to be, because I think the NFL probably sees him more as an inside guy than an outside guy, in my opinion. Just size-wise, which is kind of weird because I think he played really well down the stretch off the edge. Once he kind of got his feet wet in the SEC, got used to the talent, I thought he played very well. But I agree with that. One thing I thought was very interesting, and a lot of people pointed this out, Bo Barnes is huge.
Massive.
6'1", 246 pounds. He's the biggest linebacker on the roster. For reference, Anthony Hill, 6'3", and I believe 233 or 234, something like that. So we're talking about 2 inches shorter, but almost 15 pounds bigger for Bo Barnes. So that's interesting. And not many guys at that weight make it. So I do think he's going to have to drop a few pounds.
Yeah, and especially with how Texas plays defense and how just defenses overall go, like that is the body of a 1997 4-3 linebacker, right? Like your classic Mike linebacker, maybe a little
Anthony Wheeler.
Exactly. And Anthony Wheeler was cut. Anthony Wheeler was chiseled. So like he can play whatever way he wants if he's chiseled like that. But that is something to keep an eye on because Bo Barnes was known for his physicality in high school. He was a thumper. And maybe he gets away with being a little bit heavier than he needs to be because he's just that level of elite athlete. But, we saw last year Texas's linebackers got picked on a little bit in the pass game. And so I think I would be curious to see what that weight looks like come fall. And then again, next spring, he maybe will trim down. Again, you don't want to take away what makes him good, which is his ability to just get in there and body people. But can he do that at a weight that also allows him to drop back into coverage and to run with the tight end or to run with the running back in the flats, right? You have to be able to strike that balance with this defensive scheme and just what modern defenses are overall.
No, 100%. And yeah, I mean, they had an emphasis, it seemed like, in guys that are going to drop back into coverage of losing weight. So a guy that coming in being that heavy is probably not ideal. They'll probably honestly want him to drop about 20 pounds. 16 to 20 is my guess, being the 225, 230 range. So I have to see what happens there, but I thought that was very interesting. Also, this one, Justice Terry only weighed 266 pounds. That shocked me.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Anthony Miller, like you said, he was shredded. Well, Justice Terry is too, but 266 is very light. I mean, the best defensive lineman of all time, and he was undersized, was Aaron Donald, and he was like 285. So
Yeah.
he's going to have to at least gain 25 pounds, in my opinion, to be able to play. So that's going to be very interesting if he's able to gain that healthy weight in the short amount of time to the season, or this is more on the back burner situation, and he's not going to be able to play as much this year as we thought he was going to be able to play.
Yeah, and you know, these guys are coming from like not having nutritionists to having nutritionists and getting into a real strength and conditioning. And no shot at any high school staff, right? But that's a history teacher and a football coach and a strength and conditioning coach, right? That's just like not so like getting into a full-time strength and conditioning program, getting into a full-time nutrition program. I guarantee you, if they need him to get some weight on the body, then they could probably get it by fall. At least some of it. You obviously want to do it in a way that he does it healthily and scalably, where he doesn't lose a step. He doesn't really lose what makes him as explosive and as athletic. But again, getting these guys in a college strength and conditioning program, it's wild to see what their bodies do. And again, you mentioned Bo Barnes, a guy like that. Maybe he plays heavier and slides down a little bit. I don't know what his future looks like, but he's a guy you have to have on the field. Another one that was interesting to me, Christian Clark, not a big number, but up a little bit of weight. He was already kind of a thicker guy, and he added about 4 or 5 pounds. I don't remember the number. I think it was 5 pounds. It's like seeing him go up a little bit in weight. Texas is going to need him, and I think if Texas is going to have a solution in the short yardage game, it's probably going to come on his shoulders. So seeing him thicken up, seeing him try to be that battering ram that Texas needs, you know, there's just something to be said about, you know, mass moves mass, right? Anybody that's ever lifted weights knows that mass moves mass. And so if he's got to be bigger, he's got to be thicker, he's got to be able to put himself in those tight spots and create some space, then, you know, adding a couple pounds seems like a smart decision for him.
No, 100%. Another running back, Trey Wisner, came in a little bit lighter than expected. I think he played at like 202, 203 last year. We're talking, I think 190, like 194. So a little bit lighter than we thought. Most people thought, hey, he's going to gain 5 to 6 pounds to put on a little bit of armor. He's actually lost weight. So again, maybe he lost fat, put on muscle. That works as well. But I probably want to be a little bit heavier, in my opinion, because he is already a little guy. Like his frame's not big either. That's the thing. So I would like him to gain a little bit more weight.
And I wonder if he's dropping the weight to be more of a Swiss Army knife in that scheme where he plays a little bit of running back, comes out of the backfield and tries to catch the ball. Because he's got a solid skill set. He played wide receiver for a year in high school when he got beat out, frankly, at running back in his final year in high school. So like he's got a little bit of a diverse skill set. So I wonder if that's where they're going to go, why he's dropping the weight, to let him play a little more versatile. He's not going to be having to thump between the tackles as much anymore. So maybe it's something to watch.
Yo, 100%. Last one for me, Smith-Orogbo. Came in exactly like I thought he was. This guy's just not going to be a big-time player this year for us. 6'4", but 208 pounds. That's not going to get it done. He's going to have to gain about 30 pounds for me to be able to believe. Like, we're talking Colin Simmons is 6'3", 233 pounds, and he's still probably going to put on 5 to 6 more pounds. Smith-Orogbo is going to have to gain 30 to 40 pounds.
Eat a peanut butter sandwich right before bed. Just do it. Put on the weight, man.
Yeah, like we said, we're both big on him long-term, but this year – it's not going to happen. Yeah, Lance Jackson's going to be the guy. If we're going to see one of those edge guys right away, it's going to be him because he's just built for it.
He came in looking the part. Like he looked like he belonged when he was on campus, just hanging out for the college football playoffs. So he came in. I don't remember what his measurables were. I didn't put him on my list because it's what I expected him to be. Right? He looks the part. He has the right height, right weight. He's probably you're going to see him with a hand in the dirt sooner rather than later. Maybe not week 1, but maybe week 2 and 3, getting him on the field as quickly as can.
Yeah, I didn't check out his because it didn't eye pop to me. Like you said, it came in as exactly what I expected. But I think coming out of high school, he's like 6'5", 265, 270 pounds. So like literally just could go in and play right away. Like he could have suited up for Texas and played for Ohio State. He doesn't really need to do much. Yeah. Where Smith-Orogbo is the opposite. I love him long term, but got to put on weight.
Absolutely.
That does it for the spring roster update and breakdown. We really appreciate you guys sticking with us for that. Next up, we're going to talk about this. Parker Livingstone stepping up. Hey, it came out a couple hours ago. It sucks, but it works in the favor of what we're talking about. Ryan Wingo pulled his hamstring. He's going to be out for the whole spring, most likely. We hope he's available, obviously, for fall ball heading into the season. He's going to be very important. But apparently, Parker Livingstone has been stepping up during the spring. And then on Saturday, had a really good scrimmage and caught multiple touchdown passes. So what do you think about the step up for Parker Livingston? And what do you think he's capable of at Texas?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Texas prioritized him in that recruiting class. And there's a reason why, in a class that had the dudes that it had, he was among them. And he flew under the radar a little bit because the top end of that class was really hot and really high. But like, he is a guy who is a better route runner than he should have been coming out of high school. And he is really like, in high school, one of the things that they did with him that I was surprised at a guy with his frame is they would put him out in space and he would make people miss, right? He would play in the screen game, play in the quick out game, and just get him one-on-one with defensive backs. And so if you've got a guy that's got decent size and that skill set, it's hard to keep him off the field. Sark likes those guys who can be big but also play well in space one-on-one. That's a walking touchdown right there. If you're big enough to outbody somebody but can also drop a leg and zone right by him, like that's a guy who's going to play a lot in Sark's offense. Great route runner. He ran track for a little bit, obviously not like the elite speedster that we've seen, but he reminds me of a post-injury Jordan Shipley, right? Like just shifty in short area bursts, runs really good routes, makes himself available. Like that's what his game, and it's not just because of the melanin differences or the melanin similarities, right? But just like the way his game, I saw them like first play, go watch his huddle. First play on his huddle is a wide receiver screen, and it felt like Jordan Shipley. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and like you said, he ran track, and I think he was injured his senior year, and he couldn't run track because I believe he broke his foot. But he had decent track times. Like this guy's not slow. Like if he runs a 40, he's probably low 4.4s, maybe mid 4.4s. And then people forget he's huge. I mean, he's 6'4", probably could put on a little bit of weight, but 194. So I mean, maybe 5-6 pounds, and I think he'd be fine. But he's going to get a lot of run. Like we said, Ryan Wingo's hurt. DeAndre Moore's hurt. Honestly, he's probably wide receiver 1 right now in practice, which as a Texas fan, do I love that? No, not really. But hey, honestly, if there's a time for these guys to get a crap ton of reps that don't have them, this is the time. So this thing with Ryan Wingo, as long as it doesn't linger, because I've hurt my hamstring before and it's lasted months. I could not get rid of it, would not go away. And still nags, honestly. So hopefully that isn't the case with Ryan Wingo and he ends up being fine. And if this could honestly work out where it helps us in the long term because of the reps these guys get because of that.
And you and I have talked about it before. Like Texas doesn't have a lot of proven bodies at wide receiver. And so it sucks that you've got multiple guys that are on the mend, but seeing a guy like Parker Livingston come out and step up and be that next man up, right? Who are these young guys coming in? We talked about Khalil Lockett. We talked about Jamie French. Go back and watch us talk about the wide receivers last week, right? Like creating opportunities for these other guys to step up and prove, that just shows how many options Texas has. And so when we get to the fall and everybody's hopefully, fingers crossed, healthy, right? You have the ability to have multiple guys on the field. You can have a healthy rotation. You can have 5 or 6 guys that you're comfortable with being on the field. And so having a guy like Parker Livingston, who going in the spring wasn't a guy that we expected to see this out of. So it's found money in my opinion.
No, I agree. And I think it was interesting. I believe someone asked Sark, is there a reason you're starting to get like bigger wide receiver recruits? Because you've seen that. Usually he would go after like the Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, which are 5'10", 5'11" guys.
Devonta Smith.
Devonta Smith, who's maybe 5'11", maybe 6 foot. They're probably generous on the NFL rosters with that. But like Parker Livingston, 6'4", Khalil Lockett, 6'2", Jalen McCutcheon's a small one. I believe he's like 5'10", 5'11". So, and he basically said, when we got into the SEC, I wanted to get more physical at like the cornerback position and then also the wide receiver position because it's a more physical league. So it makes perfect sense. I think Parker Livingston is going to do a really good job in this system. Again, do I love that he could potentially be wide receiver 1 if those two guys don't end up healthy? No, I do not love that. I think that would be really bad for Texas if that ended up being the case. But if he's my wide receiver 4 this year, I feel pretty confident in what he's capable of doing and what I've seen out of high school and the way Sark develops these wide receivers. I wouldn't mind that, and I think he'd do a really good job.
Yeah, and again, I think he's a guy who came in and had a little bit of a longer development curve, just because again he was a multi-sport athlete in high school, and he just wasn't as polished and needed to develop. And now that he's there, and again, this is the next man up mentality, right? And that thing gets overplayed, right? Everybody says next man up, but legitimately, like if somebody goes down and you've got a guy like Parker Livingston, you said wide receiver 4, I could see him stepping up into like a wide receiver 3 role next year, and there are going to be plenty of balls to go around next year. So I really anticipate this being a blessing in disguise, we'll say, for Texas, or a silver lining to the cloud of the injuries.
No, and that's the thing, too. A lot of people reported that had access to the practice that was the group that they're most concerned about. So that sucks, honestly, because I thought this group would be honestly better than that, where you have guys like on Texas, inside Texas, both saying, hey, we might need someone here. And there is someone coming. We've said that as well. Like there is someone coming in the spring portal. Do we know who that is yet? No, but they are going to come to Texas. It's going to be very interesting to see who that is, if this is a big dog or more of a guy like you said, or you say all the time, Gerald, where it just raises the floor of this room. I'm very interested now to see that with the injuries that have happened and guys having to step up already.
Yeah, and like I said, the spring window is around the corner, so we'll find out here pretty quickly. But I don't think this is a group that needs to raise the ceiling, right? I think this is a raise the floor kind of situation, and so we'll see. Again, if it's a guy who raises the ceiling, I'm not mad about it. But ultimately, when you raise the ceiling with somebody like that, you have more margin for error when it comes to injury.
Yeah, and CJ Vogel tweeted out something, and he's 100% right on this. Silas Bolden missed by a year. Silas Bolden would be absolutely perfect for this team right now, honestly. Yeah. So it sucks that he didn't have another year, or hey, we have a time machine, we could bring him with us this year.
If only, man. I just they figured him out too late last year, so it is missed opportunities.
100%. That does it for Parker Livingston stepping up. Next up, we're going to talk about this. We finally had someone commit to Texas. It had been a while. I think Max Wright was the last one. Nicholas Robertson commits to the Texas Longhorns. 3-star recruit out of Klein High School. Plays offensive tackle there. He's going to play guard at Texas. What do you think of him, and what do you think he brings to the 40 acres, Gerald?
I mean, big body, right? He's got a massive frame on him. Huge kid. He is... and this is not meant to be a shot at the kid. He comes in at 335 right now, but it's like a soft 335. So he probably has a little bit of a longer way to go to get to the field, just needing to reshape his body, because he's one of those kids. And again, this is not a shot at him. He's just the biggest, nastiest thing on the field. And so he doesn't have to be, have the right body. And he's playing in a high school system and in a high school nutrition and strength programs. Like, he's going to come to Texas, and I think you're going to see him be somebody on a little bit of a longer development curve. But what I like about him, great feet, good hands, uses his body really well. And my favorite word to talk about with offensive linemen, he's aggressive, he's nasty, he's mean. He will put somebody on their keister. Again, he's got some way to go in developing, and I think his body's going to take a little bit of time to reshape. But when you think about the types of bodies that Kyle Flood likes to have on campus, this is like made in a lab kind of guy, kind of clay that he wants to build around.
I 1,000% agree. I think there was an offensive line camp, I believe, a couple months ago before Gerald joined the channel, and I made a video basically breaking down of all these offensive linemen, and like your turnkey ones that can step on the campus and play right away, like your Fila Gojo, who we'll talk about later, and then you're also your John Turntine. Whereas guys like this, Max Wright, Nicholas Robertson, I've said, hey, if they're patient and Texas develops like they currently do at the offensive line position, these guys are going to be very good football players for Texas if they decide to come here. He decided so far to come here, so did Max Wright. Hopefully they stick with us. If they can be patient, I think they're going to be really good football players. I mentioned both those guys actually in the video of like the 15 offensive linemen. I said, hey, I think these two guys with their frame, what I saw from their high school tape and the way Kyle Flood talks about them, I think they're guys that can slide in, sit for 2 years, and be very good football players for Texas. So I'm very excited about this. I love that we got both of them. I called both these guys up on them. I said, I would like these two if I can have two guys that will be willing to sit for a while. Hey, we got them. We just got to keep him in the boat, because this guy, I think, just like Max Wright, will slowly creep up these boards. Like, I think we were talking about Nicholas Robertson as a low 3-star. He's already a mid 3-star. He'll probably end up being a high 3-star, low 4-star by that the end of the cycle. Same with Max Wright. So we got to hold on to them, because schools will be coming harder, especially when it comes time to sign. So I'm super excited about both those guys.
Yeah, and I think he might be a 4-star on one of the services already. Like I think 247 has him as a 4-star. So he's like a composite 4-star, but a 3-star. And I don't know how the composite works. Math is hard. I was a communications major. But like he's coming in that June 13th window, I think, for that visit. A lot of uncommitted folks coming in that weekend. So he's going to be a guy who can recruit for Texas. And when you come in and you get to hang out with your quarterback on the recruiting visit, that's always something that you like to see. So again, I love this addition. I think he's a guy who probably could see a rise, like you said. He's already, and again, I don't know how the math works, but he's a 4-star on the composite, but a 3-star on 247 and on 3. So whatever, math is hard. But he's a guy who is going to see a rise just based on like this. Is the last thing I'll say. Just go look at the offer list, right? Who has offered him? That's the end of the conversation, right? I don't care about the stars. Go look at who's offered him, and that tells the story.
No, 100%. I mean, that was kind of the thing with Alabama. Alabama would land one of these 1 or 2 big time 3-stars, but you see the offer list, it's a crap ton of really good schools. Yeah, and it's the same thing with Nicholas Robertson. And like I said, I think he's going to be a really good player. I think he just has to have the patience, and I know that's really hard during this day and age because you see guys transferring all the time. But I think you have to believe in the process. We see this with Kyle Flood, where you have like your Kelvin Banks starts right away, goes off to the NFL after 3 years, and then you see more of your Neto Umeozulu route, who hasn't even stepped on the field but stayed with Texas. And I fully believe he's going to play pretty well for Texas when he gets his opportunity this year. Cam Williams was patient, played 1 year at Texas, left. That could be you as well. There's multiple routes to take to the field. You just have to be patient with it here at Texas.
Yeah, and he's a guy, again, like I said, who is in that Kyle Flood mold. And I'm old school in a lot of ways. I love seeing an offensive lineman come in, sit for 2 years, play for 2 years, and then dip. Like that's how it was 20 years ago. And maybe that's just how I like it.
No, 100%. I mean, that's literally what Alabama would do is they'd have one guy play. Basically, he would sit for a year or two, play 1 or 2 years off to the NFL. They'd have another guy rotate in. That's how.
Rinse and repeat.
Yeah, rinse and repeat. Georgia's kind of the same way about how they do it over there. So once you get it going, that's how it should work. And I think you're going to see that because I think Trevor Goosby's, honestly, if he plays like he did last year, probably gone after this year. And then you have someone else step in, play for a year or two, off to the NFL. So I think, and the more times you do that, by the way, the guys are willing to be like, you know what, I'll sit for however long it takes because I'm just on a factory of the NFL right now. Whereas it's hard to gain that trust, but they are gaining it.
And like we've talked about before, the kinds of players that Texas are recruiting, the NIL issue is not an issue, right? They're going to get paid wherever they go. So are they a culture fit for Texas? And are they somebody that they feel like Texas can build them into a NFL draft pick, right? All these guys aren't coming to Texas just for Texas. Like, I love Texas. You love Texas. They're coming to Texas because they see Kyle Flood and Steve Sarkisian as the guys to get them to the NFL. And so that's the equalizer. This year's draft class, having multiple guys get drafted. You'll have Kelvin Banks probably in the first round. You'll see multiple mid-round guys go off the offensive line. That's why these guys are coming to Texas.
100%. And the $50,000 pancake factory doesn't hurt either. That's your minimum you're going to get paid. So, hey, sit for 2 years, make $100,000, and then go in and play for Texas for a year or two, and then off to the NFL, make even more money. So it works out for everyone. We really appreciate you guys sticking around. We're going to put a word from a sponsor up on the screen. They sponsor the Michigan channel right there. They have a great relationship with the Michigan channel, and they enjoy sponsoring them. They actually had a March Madness bracket for $1,000. So if they obviously enjoy doing that with them, otherwise they wouldn't be giving $1,000 out of their own agency for the winner of that, which, hey, guess what? TJ's going to win that most likely. So that might be a little bit of conflict of interest with the host leader winning that. But hey, get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level. Let's discuss how you can also reach your target market. Check out the experience of one of our current partners posted on the screen. We are here to deliver for you. Sponsorships at vocfb.com is where you can contact us to sponsor any show on the network. It does not have to be ours. It can be any show on the network, so we really appreciate that. Also, check out the Voice of College Football Instagram. Just type in Voice of College Football on Instagram. Follow right there. We pump out content every day, and it will keep getting pumped out even more as we head into the season, so we really appreciate that as well. The next thing we are going to talk about is Felix Ojo was crystal balled to Texas by Justin Wells with like a 60% confidence rating about a week and a half ago now. And this is someone that we really would love to get on the 40 acres. I think we both said he's in our top 5 biggest recruits to get, him and John Turntine. So it'd be really awesome to get him. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, what is there not to say about him? Like, depending on the service, he's anywhere from like top 10 to top 25 overall. And the wild thing about Felix Ojo is that he is like one of the younger players in the class. Like, I think he will turn 18 like while he's in spring camp, or like he's a July birthday, I'm pretty sure. So like he is 6'6", 275, 280, and he is the youngest guy in the class. So like that's a puppy. That is a puppy that's going to grow into a big dog, right? But there's a reason why everybody wants him, right? He's got the offer from Oklahoma. He's got the offer from Ohio State. He's got the offer from Ole Miss, right? It's like he's got all of. There's a reason why everybody wants him. He is a big physical tackle. He's got a massive frame that I think will grow into. And this seems wild to say. He will probably put on 20 to 30 pounds when he gets to campus, right? He'll end up being able to play somewhere probably closer to 295 or 300 pounds at 6'6", got the frame to support it. Big physical offensive tackle. And he's a guy who gives you a lot of versatility, can play really on either side, but like 33, almost 34-inch arm, like wingspan, everything you want from a tackle. Like there's no thing he can do better to improve his stock. Like physically, play-wise, like again, he is a specimen.
Yeah, I mean, and he's exactly the frame Kyle Flood wants and what Texas wants. When we talk about long, athletic, versatile, I mean, he doesn't really have to be versatile because he's going to play offensive tackle, but he can play probably anywhere you want on the offensive line. And the cool thing is, instead of having to strip weight off, which is always harder to do, and that's why I appreciated Cam Williams, like, he worked his ass off to get down from 370, and I think he's listed at like 320 now. He's lost 50 pounds, and he looks really good, and he's going to be a top 45, top 50 pick in the NFL draft. This is a guy you can put weight on his frame. He's 6'6". He's only 275 pounds. You're going to want to put 25 to 30 pounds on him, and there's a good chance he grows even more. Like, he could be 6'7", 6'8" by the time he steps on campus. Kind of reminds me, he's a better prospect of Nicholas Brooks, who we got in last year's class.
Yeah.
Really big dude. Obviously, Nicholas Brooks was definitely a little bit heavier, but just overall, the same type of frame, gigantic human being. We're talking, I think Nicholas Brooks was 6'7", 350. So just a gigantic human. I think he's lost a little bit of weight as well. So it'd be really awesome to get Felix Ojo in there. The only thing I see from his tape that's negative, he can get a bit grabby at times, but again, that's easy to teach. And honestly, guys, I would rather you be a little bit grabby than not in position not to be able to grab. So I think he does a pretty good job with everything else, and that's very easy to get out. And honestly, some games you don't want that out. There are games you can get away with in the SEC where they're going to let you hold a little bit more. So that may not even be an issue.
Yeah, get the right color gloves, right, and you might be okay. But I think you're absolutely right. And it's a lot harder to coach guys to be aggressive than it is to like coach the aggression out of them. And again, he is a guy who, and I say this a lot about these guys, he hasn't had to be as technically sound as some of these smaller guys because he's just that dude, right? You walk on campus and you see him like, yep, that's the guy. So you don't have to be as, and I'm not saying this is about all or like a universality thing, but like they're just those guys that like, I'm just that dude and I don't have to actually be as technically sound because he's just the biggest, meanest, nastiest thing on the field. And again, I'm not taking a shot at the kid. He will develop and he will develop. And I bet you'll see a difference in his junior tape to his senior tape because he's got that kind of coaching out at Mansfield. Like he's got great coaches. He's got the opportunity to develop and become a better prospect. I say better prospect, like he's a top 10 kid, but like become a better player. And you know, you want to see a guy progress in his tape. So if you go watch his sophomore to junior tape, you see some progression there. And we'll probably see that from his junior to senior tape. And again, once Kyle Flood gets a hold of him, it's going to continue to develop.
No, 100%. And it kind of reminds me, I saw a video on Twitter of like a 7'1", 12-year-old on the basketball court. And they're like, how does this guy even prepare? Because he doesn't go up against the right people to play with. It's kind of the same thing with Felix Ojo. Like this guy's 6'6" in high school at 275 pounds.
Yeah.
There probably isn't a guy that's his peer most like 95% of the time when he's playing. Yeah. So it's the job of the coaches that do recruit him and do get him of teaching him how to actually play the position of football. You listen, this is 90% about genetics. And listen, I like this guy's genetics. I think he's going to be a really good player. It is my job to make him a really good player with the technique I'm coaching. That is the job of the coach. And like I said, this isn't a guy that I watch and he's flailing around, really
No.
weird looking on. It's not that. That's why he's a top 10 prospect and not like the 300th prospect with these measurables. So there's really not a lot to even teach here. He's kind of like I said, a turnkey guy. Like he can step on to campus, teach him a little bit, and I think he can play at Texas right away on the offensive line. So, and we need that. Like I said, I think we're going to lose Trevor Goosby. I'm pretty confident in saying that with everything coming out of camp and the way I saw him play last year. So you're going to have to replace your left tackle again in back-to-back years, and I think this guy could do that.
Yeah, I mean, Texas, you're going to have to continue to recruit really well. And Kyle, it's not an issue with a guy like Kyle Flood, right? My biggest worry is that Kyle Flood gets the itch that he wants to be a head coach again and goes somewhere else. I hope he doesn't. Kyle, if you're watching this, we love you. We want you here forever. Maybe we'll pay you like a head coach. Who knows? But like he's got, again, you've got a really healthy room there. You've got a young room, but you've got a healthy room. And I think Texas has the guys in the barn, the horses in the barn, to be able to put something together. And Trevor Goosby, notwithstanding, like again, as we go back and watch last week, we talked about it. I picked Brandon Baker as my breakout player because Trevor Goosby seems to be ahead of schedule, right? And if Trevor Goosby's that good, just Brandon Baker could be really, really good. So again, I'm rambling. Texas has an opportunity to really add a ton of depth to an already really deep room. And Ojo on any other campus probably walks on and is competing for at least the 2 deep, and he may not have to. And that's the luxury that Texas has. And that's something you can sell that kid, right? Hey, we don't need you to come in and be the savior of the offensive line. Right, we just need you to come in and learn the position, learn the game, learn the speed, be the best you can be as a third teamer. And then if you're ahead of schedule, you'll see the field. Right? He doesn't have to come in and be pressed into service too early.
No, that's very true as well. We're going to move on to this last thing, which actually broke about 2 hours ago now. And David Bailey, the defensive end edge from Stanford, is visiting Texas. This kind of surprised me because I saw him transferring. Obviously, went off in my head, this is a really good football player. Will Texas be interested? And I thought to myself, that's the deepest room in our program right now is the edge room. So I didn't think so. And then today, Hayes Fawcett tweets out, hey, David Bailey is visiting Texas tomorrow. So to get a visit pretty damn soon, honestly, and then being one of only a couple schools to get a visit, I think this bodes pretty well. And I think if Texas wants this guy, they're going to get him. So what do you think about David Bailey? And then do you see this? I should say, do you think this is just adding to his strength and it's a little bit too much and he may not play that much? Or how do you see this?
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it plays out. You know, especially we talked about it at the top of the show. Trey Moore listed at linebacker, so like, what's going on there? But there's a reason why, you know, there's a reason why he's the number 10 overall. I think third best edge in the class, right? Everybody wants him. 14 and a half sacks over the last 3 years, 7 last year. So decent numbers on a really bad Stanford team. Stanford was not good at football last year. He's currently at Texas Tech, may end up visiting UCLA. I'd be interested to see if this turns into a bidding war. Texas Tech is pushing a lot of chips toward the center of the table this year. And so if this is just a move to drive up the price on Texas Tech, let's drive it up as high as we can so they have a little bit less in the war chest. But, you know, again, like you said, I think Texas, these guys are going to get paid regardless of where they go. So for Texas to bring him on campus, that means that they think he has a spot to fit somewhere and to add to the culture and to add to what they've got in that defensive end room. And he thinks it's an opportunity for him to get to the next level. Texas is starting to become a destination for these guys who want 1 year to prove that they can play in the NFL and then move on. And I think David Bailey's one of those guys where he wants to come in, play really well on the biggest stage, play at the big house play against Ohio State week 1 at Texas and get on the national scene, get on under the bright lights and just show himself off. Texas is becoming that type of destination. So if Texas wants him and pushes for him, I think there's a really big opportunity there. But this is icing on the cake, right? Texas has Colin Simmons. Texas has Trey Moore. Texas has Colton Bassett. Texas has all of these players, right? So if he wants to come in and be a part of that unit, more power to him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to take these shots, but we were about half a decade removed from Brecken Hager being a starter at Texas on the edge. So, I mean, we've moved on from there. He'd be like the fourth guy off the bench right now.
Yeah.
Maybe if less than that, honestly, if we get David Bailey. So we are so stacked at that position. It's unreal. I mean, you have Colin Simmons. I think you'll see Trey Moore at the edge position. You have Colton Vasek, Ethan Burke. And then if you had this guy, David Bailey, you're going to have five guys that can legitimately get after the pass rusher and probably have 5+ sacks on top of Anthony Hill coming up the middle, or if you put him at the edge, because I think you're going to see that as well to diversify his portfolio for the NFL. And like we said, David Bailey, 6'3", 240 pounds last year, 22 tackles, 7 sacks, and this is crazy, 5 forced fumbles. So he's very good at forcing fumbles off the edge, which is definitely a unique talent. I'm a Broncos fan, so I got to watch, in my opinion, one of the best to ever do it with Von Miller, who was insane at ripping the ball out when he got to the quarterback, as we saw in the Super Bowl with Cam Newton. And that's like a special skill. So I think it'd be awesome to get him. And I agree with you. It's going to be interesting because Texas Tech's going to be willing to do anything, honestly, for someone like this. They're going to pay a lot of money. My pitch for Texas would be this. You're going to have Colin Simmons on the other side. You're going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities. That will make you way more money in the long term to go in the NFL than being the only guy on the defensive side for Texas Tech to do that. You'll just get double and triple teamed, and you'll probably have maybe the same season you did last year, but not much better.
Yeah, and again, if it turns into a bidding war, Texas Tech, they had a booster sell a bunch of oil shares like very recently, so they're going to try to throw some money at it this year, and I don't blame them. Right, the Big 12 is pretty ripe for the taking this next year. So again, move in when you can. But Texas's sale to a lot of these guys, and Sarkis said it, is not NIL. It doesn't have to be NIL. It's, hey, come here, put something on tape for the NFL, get better, be a part of a culture, potentially win a conference championship, play for a national championship, right? Those are the things. If they're a culture fit, Texas's sale is so much bigger than NIL. And frankly, I'm not saying it's bad for guys to chase a check, right? You got one football career, you have one opportunity to maximize your money, right? Go do what's best for you and your family. But I think Texas is selling more than just chasing a check. And that's the big recruiting advantage they have.
No, 100%. Like, I think it's okay. Texas Tech offering $1 million, Texas offering $700,000. That's $300,000. If you're going to be an NFL player, that's legitimately, especially a high level NFL player, that is chump change for high level NFL players. They make that in a game. So that's where I'm like, if I'm Texas, I'm saying, hey, your NFL prospects will go through the roof if you come here. You'll get way more televised TV games, because I don't know if Stanford had any other than the Colorado game. That's the only game that I could think of. And you're going to play across from a really high level college football player in Colin Simmons. And then if it's not him, you're going to play across Ethan Burke, who's probably a 3rd or 4th round pick when he comes out. And then Colton Vasek, who I have a lot of expectations for. I think he's going to be a very good football player. Yeah. So in my opinion, I think obviously I'm going to be a little bit biased, but I think the decision of the schools that I've seen, I think if you're just basing it off of to get to the NFL, Texas is by far the number one choice.
Yeah, I think as far as, like, and again, we have bias, obviously, right? We're both Texas fans. We're here on this channel talking about Texas football, but like, if it's a financial decision purely, that he probably ends up in Lubbock, and that's fine. Again, go get paid, right? No shade to anybody for doing that. Like, you got one life, you got one football career, you got to maximize it. But I think if you're looking at the totality, UCLA doesn't make a ton of sense. I don't think it does much for him that Stanford didn't do for him. So that one's a weird in for me. So again, I think Texas, if they're selling more than just NIL, I think Texas has a big advantage.
Yeah, UCLA makes no sense. I'm going to take some shots there. A shittier school, a shittier campus, and you're just as bad as the football team. Like, I don't understand why I'd go there at all. Texas Tech at least makes a little bit of sense, because I agree. The Big 12 is there for the taking, and you're going to get paid a lot of money there as well, probably more money by far than UCLA. So that makes a little bit more sense. UCLA makes no sense to me. He might as well just stay at Stanford at that point.
That was my point, right? Like, UCLA does nothing different for him than Stanford at this point.
Yeah, I saw USC might be interested. You can debate that. Like, I don't know what the hell's happening there with Lincoln Riley, so that's going to be very interesting. I mean, they probably would overpay because they need some help on the defensive side of the ball.
Mm-hmm. And they're in the Big 10, right? So they've got a little bit of money to burn.
100%. And yes, that would be a step up of competition. Your name would be thrown out there more. You would get to play against better players. So I would understand that a little bit as well. That's going to do it for us tonight, guys. We really appreciate you joining us. That was the 46th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We are here every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So we really appreciate you when you guys join us. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. I think we've up to 3,027 subscribers. So on the road to 3,100, I think we'll get there in about probably 2 months, honestly. So we really appreciate you guys doing that. Also, check out my Twitter right there, MatthewMS97, tweeting about sports. I'm also a Yankees fan, so it's been a busy week defending the torpedo bats. Everyone's using them. Also, check out Gerald right there on Twitter and also Blue Sky as well, along with the Longhorn pod that he runs. You can find that on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, wherever your podcast may be, whatever you decide to listen to. And you can find us on there as well. Just type in the voice of college football. We are there to be found. So we really appreciate you guys. And again, this has been the 46th edition. Thank you guys for joining us, and hook 'em.
Hook 'em. Go Texas basketball.
Yes, go Texas basketball.